I'm really, I don't know what the word would be. I am conflicted about an email I'm about to read to you. And I think it's because it strikes to the heart of, I know for me in my Christian walk, some of the realities of sharing the gospel with a non-believing world. And let me kind of set it up this way. When I was a man that did not follow Jesus Christ, I kind of believed in an abstract God, whatever that is, and I was living for myself. I was in full rebellion against God. I was a New Ager, which is all about, we can say spirituality and love, but has nothing to do with following any kind of moral code in Scripture, or again, who Jesus is and why he came into the world. I used to hear things like Christians say Jesus is the only way. And I would instantly, in my truth, my sin-filled mind and heart, I would think, how intolerant is that? I will never follow Jesus Christ. Why would I be a Christian? I'm perfectly content to being a New Age teacher and walking around and talking about how spiritual I am and love and all the worldly stuff. And those of us that follow Jesus, this is not an easy path at all. So I remember very vividly in my mind intolerance. I remember thinking Christians were really kind of whacked out, that they were just different and kind of weird and fanatical and all of the other things that the world may see us as. And when I became a Christian, I was fully convicted in the realities of who Jesus is. It's not logical. It's not really explainable. But when I met the risen King, it was instantaneous for me. It's as if I was allowed to see my life before him. And I was shocked by what I saw. Now, I know for those listening to the broadcast that may be spiritual but not religious, you may follow another faith, or you may somehow identify yourself as agnostic. When it comes to our walk as Christians, Scripture is really clear about some things. And last week, I think it was Wednesday, I had John Eldridge on the program. And John is an amazing teacher. His ministry speaks for itself. And if anyone listening to this broadcast who identifies themselves as a Christian man, and if you've not read Wild at Heart, I would say that's a book that's absolutely mandatory. So, the heart. What is the heart? What does it mean to be wild at heart? What is the heart of a Christian? And what does Scripture say about our heart? I asked John about that last week, and I brought up the idea of Scripture in the Old Testament talks about our heart is wicked. Give this a listen. This is John Eldridge on the program last week.
Your heart is actually where you hold your deepest convictions. Your heart is where you hold all of your memories. Your heart is where, yes, your motives, absolutely. But also, your heart is where you hold your faith. Paul says, of course, that love comes from the heart. Love one another sincerely from the heart. So most Western people were educated in a Greek model of the human being, that your mind is reason and your heart is emotion. But in the biblical worldview, the heart is the center of your soul. I mean, it's the real you. It's the true you. And yes, as you said, Jeremiah 17:9. Thanks to the fall of man, apart from Christ, the human heart is desperately wicked. Mm-hmm. Yep, you bet. And you don't need a theology degree to know that. Just watch the news, Spend a weekend with your in-laws. I mean, the human heart is the source of most of the pain and misery on this planet.
The human heart is the source of most of the pain and misery on this planet. And John made mention of the fall of man. I received this email, and I take it very close, and I have great respect for this person that sent me this email. It reads as follows. As I sit here tonight, I'm having a hard time with something I heard on your show. Something that I believe your guest John Eldredge said. He said something like, wickedness leaves the heart when Jesus comes to dwell there. My question is this to be taken literally? He writes, is my heart truly wicked or contain wickedness simply because I'm a non-believer? And then he writes, that seems very hard to accept. And even harder to accept is the thought that someone can believe that about people he has not met. So before I kind of share my thoughts, we'll open the phone lines to you. If you had an opportunity to respond to this person, what might you tell them? 888-995-5552. 888-995-5552. Said another way, how do we witness to non-believers as Christians when they ask some of the deeper questions of life? One being, how can you say that I sin? Or how can you say that my heart is wicked, you don't even know me? Are you following me here? I know when I was a spiritual teacher, I would hear such things and it would make me angry. And truth, when I was in that life, I thought I was fine. We usually go with the proverbial, I'm a good person. I know God. You know, in my estimation, God was somehow this, again, abstract God. But I know God. I'm a good person. I give. I talk about love. I try to be kind to people. And yet, the whole foundation of the Christian faith hinges on not only who Jesus is and why he came into the world, but the realities that he resurrected. It's like someone that's a non-believer can say, how do you know Jesus resurrected? You know, that's just your religion. That can't be proven. You know, the adamancy about rejecting Scripture and gospel. And I know that world well. I used to hang up on Christians. My dear wife was just here with my son and a friend, and I wish she was still here. I'd ask her to get on mic. She knows exactly this reality. This is a woman that inspires me. This is a woman that I've watched her Christian walk, which has been very difficult the last number of years. And yet her life has changed dramatically from when she was also a non-believing New Ager. So what happens? What happened to you when you submitted to Jesus Christ? For some, not much. We kind of try it on as a little bit of a life insurance policy, and then we say, I'm not happier. I don't feel better about myself. Like Jesus is a life coach or something, some madness. But yet when I met him, it all changed. For so many of us, when we met him, it all changed. And so how do we respond when John Eldredge clearly says something like this?
Your heart is actually where you hold your deepest convictions. Your heart is where you hold all of your memories. Your heart is where, yes, your motives, absolutely. But also, your heart is where you hold your faith. And yes, thanks to the fall of man, apart from Christ, the human heart is desperately wicked. The human heart is the source of most of the pain and misery on this planet.
And when someone that rejects that and says, how can you tell me that my heart is wicked because I'm a non-believer, even you don't even know me? It's hard to accept that thought when someone can believe that about me when they've not even met me. How do we respond to that? How would you respond to this person? What would you say? 888-995-5552. 888-995-5552. This is really important. as Christians, and if you're listening, you need to have an answer. How many of us just hide out with the fear that I hope I never get asked a question I don't have an answer for? Even though you do, I'd like to suggest that's a lie of the enemy. We all have an answer. We all know what Jesus has done in our lives. It's undeniable. But we either hide out and say, I don't want to go there, or there is a segment, I believe, in my truth of Christians that hide out in kind of a self-centered spirituality, where look at me, I'm the perfect Christian, etc., when Christ didn't come into the world, wasn't on that cross, didn't resurrect so that we can be spiritual. He was all about transformation, and that's a lifelong process.